If someone had asked me a year ago what happiness looked like, I would have pointed to my family. My wife, Sarah, and I had built a life full of quiet love and laughter. Our daughter, Emily, was our pride, graceful, ambitious, and engaged to Ryan, a young man who felt more like a son than a future son-in-law. Our house often buzzed with warmth. Wedding plans scattered across the kitchen table, soft music in the background, Sarah and Emily laughing as they compared floor arrangements. I would sit in my favorite chair, watching them, my heart swelling with gratitude. It felt like everything I had ever dreamed was unfolding before my eyes. But sometimes, even in the middle of that joy, I noticed shadows I couldn't explain. Sarah seemed distant. There were moments when I'd catch her staring out the window, lost in thought, her smile fading too quickly when I spoke. She said she was just tired. Wedding stress, she called it. And I believed her. After all, 25 years of marriage had taught me to trust her without question. Ryan, too, began to change in small, almost invisible ways. His laughter no longer sounded as genuine. He seemed distracted, his eyes carrying a hint of guilt I couldn't quite name. But I ignored it. Why would I suspect anything when life felt so perfect? Looking back now, I realize how blind love can make a man. I mistook silence for peace and distance for exhaustion. I didn't know then that beneath the gentle surface of our family's happiness, something dark and destructive was quietly taking root. Something that would soon tear our lives apart and leave scars no time could ever heal. It started with little things, the kind of changes you almost convince yourself you imagined. Sarah's phone, once carelessly left on the counter or beside her pillow, became something she guarded closely. She carried it everywhere, clutching it like it contained her soul. When it buzzed, she'd flinch. Sometimes she'd smile faintly at a message, then quickly turn the screen away when she noticed me looking. At first, I told myself it was harmless. After all, we were older now. People change. They find new friends, new interests. But when I'd ask who she was texting, she'd shrug it off with a quick laugh and say, "Just a friend from work." Still, her eyes never quite met mine when she said it. Around the same time, I noticed something strange about Ryan, too. The young man who once couldn't stop talking about Emily, about their honeymoon plans, their new apartment, their dreams, suddenly seemed distracted. He'd sit through dinner with his phone face down, pushing food around his plate, lost in thought. Emily tried to joke about it, but I could see the worry behind her smile. One night, after Emily had gone to bed, she came to me in tears. "Dad," she whispered, "do you think Ryan's having second thoughts about the wedding?" I hugged her, telling her not to overthink it, that men sometimes grow quiet under pressure. But deep down, something inside me shifted. A few days later, I came home early from work. The house was quiet except for the low murmur of Sarah's voice. She was in the kitchen, speaking on the phone, her tone trembling. I was about to call out to her when I heard the words that made my heart freeze. "We can't keep doing this. People will find out. Please, just stop calling me." Her voice cracked as she said it. Then silence. When I stepped into the room, she nearly dropped her phone. Her face went pale, her lips parting in a nervous smile. "It's nothing, Daniel," she said quickly. "Just a work thing." But I knew, right then, it wasn't nothing. I couldn't explain how, but something invisible and sacred between us had shifted. That night, as she slept beside me, I stared at the ceiling, listening to her steady breathing, wondering how a sound so peaceful could hide a truth so heavy. Weeks passed, and the tension in our home thickened like fog. Sarah avoided my eyes more often now, moving through the days like a ghost in her own life. I tried to reason with myself. Maybe I was imagining things. Maybe stress had built monsters where there were none. But denial only lasts so long before truth forces its way in. One evening, as I prepared dinner, Sarah rushed to the bathroom, pale and trembling. I followed, worried, and found her hunched over the sink, her face damp with sweat. "Are you okay?" I asked, panic rising in my chest. She took a shaky breath and whispered, "I think I might be pregnant." The words hit me like thunder. Pregnant? After all these years? For a moment, I felt a strange, hopeful warmth. Maybe this was a blessing, a new beginning for us. I took her hands, tears forming in my eyes. "That's wonderful, Sarah," I said softly. "We can do this. We'll be a family again." But she didn't smile. Her fingers trembled in mine. "Daniel," she murmured, her voice breaking, "I don't know if it's yours." Everything inside me went still. The room seemed to tilt, my heartbeat echoing in my ears. "What do you mean?" I asked, though part of me already knew. She turned away, covering her face. "It was a mistake," she whispered. "It only happened a few times. I didn't mean for it to go this far." I stepped back, my breath coming in shallow bursts. "Who?" My voice cracked, louder than I intended. "Who is it, Sarah?" Her silence was answer enough, and then, almost too softly to hear, she said, "Ryan." For a moment, I thought I had misheard her. My mind refused to accept it. "Ryan, our daughter's fiancé. The boy I trusted, the one I welcomed into our home, into our family." I remember feeling my knees weaken, as though the earth had given way beneath me. "You're lying," I said, but even my own voice sounded hollow. Sarah wept, begging me to listen, saying it was never love, just confusion, loneliness, a horrible, stupid thing that got out of control. But her words barely reached me. All I could see was Emily's face, my little girl, preparing for a wedding that would never happen, dreaming of a life built on betrayal. That night, I couldn't sleep. My chest ached as I sat alone in the dark, replaying every smile, every dinner, every moment Ryan had called me sir or dad. I remember how Sarah had looked at him sometimes, not with the fondness of a mother figure, but something else, something I had refused to see. The next morning, while Sarah slept, I opened her phone. I don't know what I hoped to find. Maybe proof she was lying, maybe something to ease the pain. But what I found were messages, long, emotional messages filled with guilt, apologies, and memories they should never have shared. Each word felt like a blade. That's when it truly sank in. My wife was carrying my daughter's fiancé's child, and the life I thought I knew, the family I believed in, shattered in a single heartbeat. I don't remember deciding to confront her. It just happened. The pain, the sleepless nights, the silence between us had grown unbearable. One evening, I came home to find Sarah in the living room, folding laundry as if everything were normal. That ordinary sight, her calmness, ignited something inside me. "Who were you planning to tell first?" I asked quietly. She looked up, startled. "What do you mean?" I held up her phone. The screen glowed with the last message she'd sent to Ryan. "I can't keep lying to them. He deserves to know." Her face drained of color. For a moment, she didn't speak. She just stood there frozen, her hands trembling over the basket of clothes. Then she whispered, "Daniel, please, let me explain." "Explain?" My voice broke. "Explain how you betrayed me? Or how you destroyed our daughter's life?" She began to cry, tears spilling down her face. "It wasn't supposed to happen," she said through sobs. "I was lonely, Daniel. You were always working, always tired. He was kind. He listened. It was a mistake. I swear, a horrible mistake." I laughed bitterly, the sound echoing to the room like something broken. "A mistake doesn't happen more than once, Sarah. A mistake doesn't leave you carrying his child." Her crying grew louder. "I never meant to hurt anyone. I love you. I still love you. Don't," I said sharply, "don't you dare say you love me. Not after this." At that moment, a small voice came from behind us. "Mom? Dad?" We turned. Emily stood in the doorway, her eyes wide, confusion clouding her face. She must have heard everything. The silence that followed was unbearable. Sarah tried to reach for her, but Emily stepped back, shaking her head. "Tell me it's not true," she whispered, her voice trembling. Sarah's sobs were answer enough. Emily screamed, a sound so raw and full of agony it tore through me. "How could you?" she cried. "He was my fiancé. How could you do this to me?" Sarah fell to her knees, begging, pleading, but Emily ran upstairs, slamming her door. The house erupted in sobs and silence, the kind of silence that crushes you from the inside. I sank onto the couch, feeling the weight of years of love and trust crumble into dust. Sarah knelt beside me, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. I couldn't look at her. That night, I slept on the floor of my study. I could still hear her crying through the walls, the sound of guilt, grief, and something far too broken to fix. The days that followed felt like walking through the ashes of life that had already burned down. Our home, once filled with laughter and warmth, became silent, suffocating. The smell of coffee in the mornings, the sound of Emily humming while setting the table, Sarah's gentle voice calling my name, all gone. What remained was the echo of what used to be. Emily refused to speak to her mother. She moved back into her old room, but treated Sarah like a stranger. When Sarah tried to talk, Emily would walk away, tears streaming silently down her face. The wedding dress still hung in her closet, untouched, mocking the dream she had built with Ryan. I found her one night sitting on the floor beside it, clutching the fabric and whispering, "Why, Mom? Why him?" I didn't have an answer. Ryan disappeared. His family quietly moved him out of town, away from the whispers and the shame. No goodbye, no explanation, just a void where my daughter's future used to be. Sarah, on the other hand, tried to live as if normalcy could still be salvaged. She cooked meals I couldn't eat, left notes I couldn't read, and said goodnight through a closed door. Every word from her mouth felt like a plea, and every glance felt like a wound. I tried to be strong for Emily, but I was breaking too. I'd sit alone at the dining table, staring at the 3 empty chairs that used to hold my world. Sometimes I'd catch myself reaching for my phone, wanting to text Ryan, to ask him why, but what could I possibly say that would make sense of any of this? Nights were the hardest. I'd lie awake in the study, haunted by memories, Sarah's laughter from years ago, Emily's first steps, Ryan calling me Dad. Each memory was a ghost, reminding me of everything I had lost in the name of trust. One evening, Sarah came to me, her eyes swollen from crying. "Daniel," she whispered, "please don't hate me. I know I don't deserve forgiveness, but I can't live without hope." I looked at her, this woman I had loved for 25 years, and felt nothing but exhaustion. "I don't hate you," I said quietly, "but I don't know who you are anymore." She broke down then, collapsing onto the floor, her sobs filling the empty house. And for the first time, I didn't try to comfort her. I couldn't, because sometimes love doesn't end with anger. It ends with silence. Months passed, each one carving a deeper emptiness inside me. The leaves changed, the world moved on, but our home remained frozen in quiet grief. Sarah's belly grew, and with every passing day, I found it harder to look at her. That growing life inside her was a living reminder of betrayal, and yet it was also a life that had done nothing wrong. When the day came, I drove her to the hospital in silence. The air between us was thick with things left unsaid. She held her stomach and cried softly during the drive, and though part of me wanted to comfort her, my hand stayed clenched on the steering wheel. Hours later, a nurse told me it was a boy. I stood outside the room, staring through glass as Sarah held the tiny baby to her chest. Her tears fell onto his soft skin. For the first time in months, I saw something genuine in her eyes. Not guilt, not fear, but love. Pure, helpless love. I didn't go in. I couldn't. A few days later, when she was discharged, she asked me to sit with her. Her voice was fragile, almost childlike. "Daniel," she said, her fingers twisting the edge of a blanket, "I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but please adopt him." I stared at her, stunned. "He deserves a father," she whispered. "Someone who will love him, raise him right. I can't bear the thought of him growing up knowing the truth, that he was born from something so ugly." Her voice broke. "Please, don't make him pay for my sin." Her words pierced through my anger like light through smoke. I wanted to scream that I couldn't. That every time I looked at that child, I'd see Ryan, the man who destroyed my family. But then I remembered what it felt like to hold Emily for the first time. The fear, the awe, the unconditional love that came from nowhere. That night, I went to the nursery. The baby slept peacefully, wrapped in a soft blue blanket. I stood there just watching. His tiny chest rose and fell, his face calm and innocent. For a moment, my heart softened. He didn't ask to be born. He didn't ask for any of this. I reached out, my hand trembling, and gently touched his hand. His little fingers wrapped around mine instinctively, and something broke inside me, not in pain, but in quiet surrender. In that silence, I realized forgiveness doesn't always come with words. Sometimes it starts with a touch. The weeks that followed blurred together, a mix of sleepless nights, quiet mornings, and questions I couldn't answer. Sarah stayed mostly in her room, tending to the baby she'd named Noah. I kept my distance, afraid of the storm that still lived inside me. Yet every time I heard the baby's soft cry echo through the house, something inside me stirred, not anger, but something gentler, something I couldn't quite name. Emily had moved out by then. She couldn't stand the sight of her mother or the sound of the baby's cry. She found a small apartment across town, started a new job, tried to piece her life back together. We spoke often, but I could hear the pain in her voice every time she asked about home. "Is she still there?" she'd ask, never using her mother's name. One evening, I came home late from work. The house was dim, the only light coming from the nursery. I stood quietly at the door and saw Sarah asleep in a chair, Noah resting on her chest. The sight did something to me. For months, I'd seen her only as a woman who had destroyed everything. But in that moment, she looked small, fragile, and achingly human. When she woke, her eyes met mine, weary, unsure. "You can hold him, if you want," she whispered. I hesitated, but stepped forward. The baby stirred as I lifted him into my arms. He was warm, his heart beat tiny against my chest. His fingers curled around mine, just like the first night I saw him, and I felt a weight lift slowly, painfully. "He looks like you," Sarah said softly. I shook my head. "No, he doesn't." Then, after a pause, I added, "But maybe that's okay." Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't deserve your kindness." "You don't," I said quietly. "But he does." That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the house, touching the walls, the furniture, the memories that still lingered like ghosts. 25 years of love, laughter, and shared dreams, all reduced to one terrible choice. But even in that ruin, there was something still alive, still fighting to breathe. The next morning, I made my decision. I told Sarah I would stay. Not for her, not even for the sake of what we once had. But for Noah, "I don't know if I could ever forgive you," I said, my voice shaking. "But I can choose not to hate you, and I can choose to love this child, even if he isn't mine by blood. He deserves better than the pain we built." Sarah broke down, sobbing into her hands. I didn't comfort her, not with words, at least. But for the first time, I didn't walk away. In the months that followed, I began to heal slowly, imperfectly. I started taking Noah on walks, reading him stories, watching him smile. Each day, the pain softened a little more, replaced by something unexpected, peace. Forgiveness didn't come all at once. It wasn't a grand gesture, but quiet decision, made again and again in the small hours of the morning, when the house was still and the baby's breathing filled the silence. I had lost everything I thought I knew about love. But somehow, in holding that child, I found a new kind of love, one born not from trust or desire, but from mercy. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough.